So far, I have published 2 adventures for my game Stravagante Gigante. Now I have started working on a 3rd. It is inspired by this illustration I made for the book, and is going to be much, much bigger. Hail and well met, everyone. In this video, I'm going to be drawing 3 NPCs from my new adventure, The Quest for Turtle Keep. That is currently just a placeholder name, but I like it a lot, so who knows, it might stick. The first NPC is a lizard folk scholar. She is heavily inspired by the local variety of wall lizard that are in abundance where I live. I have drawn plenty of lizard folk and similar reptilian humanoids over the years, but for some reason I always want to make them look slightly goofy. Maybe it's just that if you put a gecko or an iguana in an upright bipedal position, I think they look a little bit silly. I have nothing against ferocious looking dinosaur people, of course. The scholar is supposed to have a sort of absent-minded professor look to her, so it fits quite nicely. Her outfit is inspired by the clothes worn by the inhabitants of Dinotopia, created by the infamous paint wizard James Gurney. So, the premise for this new adventure is that a legendary giant turtle with a fortress built on its shell has suddenly reappeared after hundreds of years. The legends differ a lot, but one thing they all agree on is that the castle supposedly contains something incredibly valuable. I don't want to go into too many plot details yet, but there are going to be various factions all competing to get control of Turtle Keep. In writing this adventure, I am trying my absolute hardest to hold to the same approach I used for my previous 2. That is to say, stick to the bare essentials and don't get carried away. However, the scope is wider, there are more characters in play as well as more locations, so I can't escape the feeling that it should be, well, bigger. I know the core of the adventure is travelling around by sea, visiting island and coastal settlements, searching for Turtle Keep. The main dilemma I am facing, though, is what should my design approach be? As I currently see it, I have 2 options. One is to make a kind of hex crawl map with clearly marked and described locations, and maybe 1 or 2 roll tables for random encounters. The second option is to go for a more theatre of the mind approach and make the whole thing randomly generated via prompts and more roll tables. Both options appeal to me, but not being overly familiar with hex crawl maps, I think I will have to do some more investigating. Moving on to the next NPC now. This one is an elf pirate. Originally she was going to be a human, but then I gave her pointy ears and one thing led to another. You know how it goes. For her outfit, she's supposed to look like a traditional fantasy pirate. Eye patch, fancy coat with a big collar, swashbuckling boots, etc. As you'll see when I get to colouring though, I wanted to include the stereotypical nature-y textures and palettes associated with elves. My concept for this character is that she is a forest elf who fell in love with the sea and ran away from home. Members of her elf clan receive a magical seed when they are still babies. The seed grows into whatever the elf needs or desires most once they are of age. My thought is usually the seed grows into a home, a tool, or a weapon, but for her, it turned into a ship. I haven't drawn any art of her pirate vessel yet, but I am picturing it looking very organic and tree-like. Perhaps the main mast is just a massive tree trunk. Either way, I am very much looking forward to designing it. Maybe I'll make a video on it? Or a video on the hexcrawl map if I decide to go that route. This video might end up being a part 1 of 3. I should probably concentrate on writing the adventure before I start thinking of how to turn it into videos. Besides, I still haven't made an updated character creation video for Stravagante Gigante. There are times, especially when my silly brain decides to be mean to me for no reason, when I once again compare myself unfavourably to other TTRPG creators. I'll see how much supplementary content a game will have, or how enthusiastically its fans sing its praises online, and I can't help but wonder, will Stravagante ever be someone's favourite game, aside from me? Maybe it's fine that I am mostly making it for myself. I guess I can only hope that anyone out there who does play it enjoys it. Finally, the third NPC. This fellow is a clockwork clerk, working for a king. It was only after I had started inking this one that I realized how much he resembles TikTok. The robot from Return to Oz, not the social media platform. I find this particularly amusing because I have never even watched that film, yet somehow the visuals seeped into my brain. Similarities aside, I liked that I was able to communicate his fastidious, slightly neurotic nature through the pose and shape. This chap isn't a fighter or an adventurer, he is the perfect bureaucrat. I feel that in a fantasy world where magical automata exist, they would be highly sought after in the dehumanizing field of bureaucracy. Maybe the king was getting tired with how often his human advisors were pushing back on his latest cruel and unusual legislation. So he just replaced them all with mechanical constructs like this one. Remember kids, there's no such thing as a good and just king. I ended up blending a lot of colours to get the right copper and brass look I was aiming for. I had originally thought of giving him clothes, but in the end I just opted for the spectacles and riveted feathered cap. The blue glow emanating from within him is supposed to suggest some kind of magical power source. Or maybe it's the ghost of a dead human bureaucrat who did not read the fine print of his employment contract carefully enough. And there we have our trio of NPCs. I hope they will be as fun to interact with as they were to design and draw. Thank you very much for watching, especially if you stayed all the way to the end. Which one was your favourite NPC? If you want to stay up to date with my work, you can subscribe to my blog/newsletter, The Penflower Post, via my website. If you'd like to support me, you can check out my web store, Itch.io, and Patreon, all linked below. Until next time, bye bye!